going on? Welcome to the 26th episode of IntheAMwMC. It's your boy Mike Codrington. I'm blessed to be on here talking to y'all, talking sports. Um, we got some great topics today. There's been a lot going on in the sports world, as there always is. Sports is one of those industries that I've noticed ever since I've really followed from like multiple different viewpoints at a time. It's just never dull. There's always storylines, and I mean that's probably why I love 30 for 30s. Like over the pandemic, I watched basically every 30 for 30. I just sat there and it was available on Hulu without the ESPN plugin. I'm not sure if it is now, which is a crazy sentence to say aloud because that's just the way a cookie crumbles. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes they could, one week you could watch The Office on Peacock, the next week you can't, and then you got to watch it on Paramount, like that's just, it's the world we live in. Um, Speaking of blessed, I get real patriotic when I see that Bucky Beaver. When I pull up and I see Bucky the Beaver, I get very patriotic. Bucky's is a wild place. I remember I went there the first time I'd ever been. It was a couple years ago. I was on the way to San Antonio for a conference. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to Bucky's. And I was talking to people all week, like, yeah, like they talking about we gonna make a rest stop at this gas station called Bucky's. They're like, it's not just a gas station. And I'm like, all right, bro, like whatever. They were correct. Like they were right. Like, I mean, everything is bigger in Texas, as they say, and they have Bucky's in places outside of Texas, mostly Texas though. But there's like no exaggeration. There's like 10 or 15 gas pumps. There's 10 or 15 places to charge electric vehicles. There's like you could buy like a grill, you could buy like a pit, you could buy a barbecue rub. They have a wall of beef jerky. There's like 60 different flavors of Bucky's jerky. If you know what I'm talking about, this is nothing to you. If you've never heard of this, you think I'm speaking a different language. Cause it's like I am. Um, they make fresh meats, they make fresh sandwiches, they make fresh everything. Like they have fresh desserts, cinnamon rolls, pralines. Um, it's actually ridiculous. And my go-to is the chicken fajita tacos. I just think that they do them so well there. Like it's like incredible bang for your buck, considering the fact that you're in like it was essentially a gas station. And the bathrooms are like, you know, they're really like stadium bathroom, like a really nice stadium. If you've ever been to a stadium that actually has nice bathrooms, not like back in the day. I remember Shea Stadium, where the Mets used to play before they started playing the City Field. Like that they used to have like the bathroom was just it just basically looked like a giant storage closet with stalls in it. And instead of having urinals, they just had like a giant bucket, like a long horizontal metal bucket, basically with drains, and people would just line up and use the bathroom in those. So maybe not that, but just think about like a much nicer stadium. Those bathrooms, like that's what Bucky's is like. And I say all this to say, every time I get around that Bucky's, I realize why America exists. Now I'm playing, but yeah, I get the chicken pita tacos. I get, give me a Diet Coke. You get some gum. I'm a Nerds Cluster fan. I might get some Nerds Clusters. I've had like a lot of the different stuff at Bucky's. Every now and then when I feel myself getting real gluttonous in there, I might get a couple pineapple or something or grapes, like for my peace of mind. But that ain't doing nothing. When you get that fresh brisket on them, all right. Enough about Bucky's. NFL Sunday kicked off. The New York Giants disappointed me offensively, unsurprisingly. But defensively, they held up pretty well against the Commanders. Only allowed 21 points for Jaden Daniels. He struggled decently, and he struggled as well against the Green Bay Packers in week 2 on Thursday Night Football. Russell Wilson's not the guy. And it's really concerning because all camp you're hearing how he's a guy, you're seeing these videos, you're talking about this chemistry he has, and he's always gonna talk the talk. But can he walk the walk? Like it is a skill, it's a skill. It truly is like to talk the talk. Everybody can't do it. He reminds me of The Rock, like The Rock could put out like when he put out Black Adam, which was a horrendous movie, he was talking like he had just broken ground on Excalibur. Like he was literally like, no one has ever done this. While we're in the era of giant blockbuster superhero movies, mind you, he's like, no one has ever done this. We're gonna kick off this universe. the universe he was claiming to kick off it already exists. But the reason that I'm making this comparison is that like it's very much like Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson's like, what we're gonna do is forward and we're gonna break new ground and this, and he's talking about all of these things he's gonna do. But when the lights turn on, he's a short yardage merchant. And then I mean Wandell again is gonna shape up to have a season like he had last year where he has like 100 catches for 800 yards. Like that is abysmal in the National Football League. Um, Russell Wilson is in this point in his career is not even close to as good as somebody like Aaron Rodgers. And I did not want Aaron Rodgers on the Giants. Let me be clear. But I think that you see what he's able to do in Pittsburgh on like having signed after training camp. Like he didn't go to like all the training camp basically. He got acclimated. And I know the NFL has a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I'm pretty sure he had the playbook early and he's a high level football player. Like a lot of the concepts are similar and there's good athletes around him, but Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career, Geno Smith at this point in his career, like some of these guys are who are similar to Russell Wilson on paper as far as age or as far as mechanics or as far as accolades are significantly better than he is right now in his career. And it's unfortunate I think he's a good guy, but he's not the guy. And so if you're the Giants, the question is not Jackson Dart. The question is when Jackson Dart, because I'm really confident that even Jameis Winston would be a better quarterback for this team because he's going to push the ball down the field more frequently. Like he's going to take the risks. I think Russell Wilson's a check down merchant because being in that like good guy, like I do everything right. I'm a coach's example kind of situation. He's not going to just take giant risks for no reason. Um, but J-Bo is going to push the ball down the field regardless of, interception or not. Like he's going to take the risks. He's going to take the shots. You got Hyatt, you got neighbors, you got dudes that can burn. You got Slayton. Slayton can burn. Like think about every time Tyrod Taylor used to go in the game a couple years ago, Slayton, he would just find Slayton for like 50 yards. Then he would run the ball, think he was 2012 Tyrod Taylor to get smacked and then come out the game. But yeah, it's really disheartening for the Giants organization if your front seven is just playing so well. I think we lost Micah McFadden, which is very unfortunate because he was shaping up to have probably the best year of his career and a contract year for him. Um, but the Giants do have to clean up some stuff on the back end. Every single guy on the back end at one point in time looked poor. Like they were exposed. Every single guy at some point in time was exposed either because they were lacking schematically, or just because the Commanders do present some matchup issues with McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. They do present some matchup issues. The Giants have always struggled with tackling guys in space. And so that's something that I'm going to monitor going forward as well. Even with the outstanding pass rush, once a guy gets the ball, can he be brought to the ground and who's going to bring him to the ground? And the pursuit, right? It's got to be multiple guys to the ball. But that's the Giants week one. I hope that they can, get some stuff together. I want to say we play the Eagles this week. Oh boy. If that's the case, oh boy. Speaking of another team that looked really bad, the Miami Dolphins. Holy, the Miami Dolphins looked bad. I wrote on my paper right here, Dolphins doo doo. I'm sorry, that's a little bit too much, but like that's what they look like. Tua Tagovailoa is a player who I think his best days are behind him, and it's partly because of some cognitive issues, suffered from multiple concussions, and it's also partly because of the fact that he does not seem to have the same confidence in driving the ball through the point. Like he's one of the best football players at driving the football through the point that I've really seen, left-handed or right-handed. And I think that that's what made him so exciting at Alabama as a prospect. That's what helped him win that national championship game. That's what helped him become a Pro Bowl quarterback multiple times for the Miami Dolphins. But all that being said, this is also a guy who's had 5 or so ankle surgeries on like the same ankle. He doesn't have the mobility that he once did, like within the pocket, like not necessarily asking him to scramble or run the read option. I'm talking moving laterally in the pocket, delivering strikes, and having confidence again in throwing through the point. Because if he had that confidence, his deep ball would be there. That was always one of the sells it to it, is that hey, this guy's got a good deep ball. And Tyreek Hill has not, the infamous stat, he's not scored a touchdown or caught a ball for over 30 yards in over a year. That's not characteristic of Tyreek Hill. They're in no man's land because they just traded Jalen Ramsey for the sake of contract. They have a lot of other big contracts on their team. They had to give Sealer, the defensive tackle, a big contract after getting rid of Christian Wilkins because they didn't want to pay him his big contract, a guy who got voided. I don't think I really talk. Excuse me, if I did talk about it, it might have been brief. But Christian Wilkins, his contract, that's going to be very interesting as far as the league and the NFLPA's battle with the guaranteed money. Kyle Hamilton just signed a 4 year, I think, $100 million contract, 82 million guaranteed. 82% of his contract is guaranteed. And in other industries, 100% of your contract is guaranteed. But because of the giant checks that are being cut in the NFL, because of the way that NFL teams and NFL owners don't trust the players, and players can get injured, and players have issues off the field and things like that, they don't want their contracts to be even close to that much guaranteed. And Deshaun Watson, he's continually proving that in real time why it's not necessarily in the best interest to have a lot of guaranteed money on these bigger contracts. But at the same time, the players are making this giant push for their own safety, for their own guarantee, for the respect, between them and ownership. And that starts with the guaranteed money. So they are kind of at a stalwart here, and it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. Gino and Pete, they look like they're going to put together a nice 11-win season, just like they both of them kind of always have that about them, right? Like, we're going to be very aggressively average. We're going to be very competitive. How do they take the next step is the question. The Raiders defensively did not look too bad. They still have Max Crosby. He's still that guy. Like, they did not look that bad. And so I think that they're going to string together a nice little 11-win season. Genty scored a touchdown, but he didn't have too many plays go his way. I think that once they really unlock him, Geno Smith, the play action master, is going to just go to work. The Packers are officially scary. One of their guys, I think it was Keyshawn something. They asked him, like, do y'all got a different swag about y'all? He said, yeah, we have Micah Parsons. Straight face. Absolutely. You have Micah Parsons. You have Rashawn Gary. Yes, they had to trade away Kenny Clark, but they still have Edgar and Cooper as well, rushing that passer. They play the run well. Like I said on this show before, like, Micah Parsons is a good run defender. That's everyone's knock on these smaller guys who are these smaller, like, super explosive edge rush guys. It's like, oh, they can't handle the run responsibility, like a guy who's 280. Maybe not, but a guy who's 280 is also going to get really tired, in the course of the game, versus a guy who's 255, 260. Some of these guys are less. I think Brian Burns is like 240. I mean, these dudes are flying, they're relentless, and they're really hard to just dig out. Like, that's what run blocking is. You have to dig these guys out of their position and reset the line of scrimmage. It's hard to do. Like, these guys know how to set an edge, they know how to box, they know how to spill. Like, I think that it's just lazy for people to look at these edge rush guys who are smaller and just be like, yeah, they can't play the run, without actually watching them play the run and without understanding, like, how certain defensive coordinators like to sub. Some guys aren't going to be on the field on first and second down anyway. Some guys are just third down guys. Some guys are just second and third down guys. Like, you got to understand the personnel, like, who's on the field. Last but not least, that Bills game. I was really burnt out that Sunday. I coached football on Friday, watched a lot of football Saturday while prepping for the following week. And then Sunday, I watched the Giants at 1, and I watched a little bit of the 4 o'clock games, but not really, just kind of like on and off. And so I wasn't trying to watch the Bills Ravens game like that. But I love Lamar Jackson to no avail. Like, I love watching him play. And when I was in high school, in like the beginning of college, that's when we watched him have his, like, terrible playoff struggles. He started like 0-3 or 0-4 for his first couple playoff games, starting to get over that hump. I think that the patience still has to be there for us as fans, but the point is that the Ravens cannot keep losing games like this. Give credit to Josh Allen, give credit to McDermott, give credit to the Buffalo Bills organization, because their late game management was phenomenal, and that is what helped them win this game. And they were down by 2 scores with limited time left, 5 or 6 minutes left, and they came back and they won the game. And it was shocking. It was stunning. It helped that Derrick Henry, after a phenomenal classic Derrick Henry game, decided to fumble at the end of the game. That helped the Bills, obviously, right? But I think that Harbaugh's got to go. I think that if they do not win the Super Bowl this year, he has got to go because they cannot keep losing games like this. They just cannot, Their offense is probably going to break the record. They broke an NFL record last year for most rushing yards. They're probably going to break it again because their offense is impossible to stop, and they didn't really have Keaton Mitchell like that. And I think if they have him and Lamar runs two or three more times a game, it's just too much too often. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, they're starting to get it, like get the picture. Where in the Ravens offense, you are the tight end in the way of you're blocking and you're going to get the ball a couple of times, and you better do something with it when you get it. Hopkins had a one-handed touchdown catch. Like, I'm not worried about the Ravens offense at all. It's the defense. They are continually allowed to have lackluster defense, especially in the secondary, especially in tackling guys in space. And while having the best safety in the league, while having a former All-Pro in Marlon Humphrey, and now having Jair Alexander, they still looked bad as a unit. They still found a way to look bad as a unit. And so I am concerned about Roquan Smith. I'm concerned about him. Like, he is supposed to be this all-pro guy who they traded for, who was previously making the most money on their defense before Kyle Hamilton. And he looked bad. He looked bad in that first game. So I want the Ravens to win this year. Like, they were my pick to win in the preseason. But if they play like that defensively, they're not going to beat a lot of teams. Not in 2025's NFL because it's too high octane for y'all to be playing like that. The WNBA is expanding. It's been a hot topic. Many players have weighed in. Many coaches have weighed in. One thing that is cannot be overlooked in this expansion is that the evaluation of these teams is blowing up. Um, that's great. Like, that helps the entire league, like the valuation of the whole league. But to have a team like the Connecticut Sun be worth 250 to 200 and 300, excuse me, 250 to 350 million dollars is huge for them. Like, that's awesome. And you're in a place like Connecticut, um, outside of Greenwich, which is one of the richest counties in America. Um, who is coming to these games, right? Like, where's the support coming from? Who's buying these jerseys? It's not even like Connecticut didn't even make the playoffs this year, and they're valued at that. So think about what the Aces are worth. Think about what the Mercury can be worth. The Lynx, like, yeah, even Atlanta. The Atlanta Dream are a team that should appeal a ton to people in Atlanta. And they certainly sell tickets when they're on the road, right? The sale was really funky though. So they were sold to a Boston-based group for $350 million, allegedly, right? And the WNBA is not interested in moving the Connecticut Sun to Boston. So they essentially bought the Connecticut Sun for $250 million. So $100 million less, right? But they're also not going to move the team. Like, that is their way of saying we want to be involved in the sale of the team, and we are also not interested in moving the team. We're interested in moving teams to places that we want to move teams that align with our interests. That's really selfish, and it's counterintuitive to growing the league. It's really, honestly, it really makes me think about the stuff with Kawhi and aspiration, because it's like, these players are making so much money, but at the end of the day, they could be the people who are paying them the money could afford to pay them the money maybe two or three times over. And the players are not really getting close to what they're bringing in. And some of them understand that, and some of them don't. And that's why you have a players association, so that you can make these negotiations to hopefully get closer to what you're worth, to get closer and closer to what you're grossing. At no job in America are you going to net what you gross, right? Both because of taxes and because of the nature of the beast. But they're trying to get closer. And this snafu with this Connecticut sale does not help them get closer to that. Very similarly, right? Unrivaled was valued at about 300 or about $36 million when it first started a year ago, and is now valued at nearly $400 million in just a year. So you have a domestic league that is founded by the players, that is player led, where many players are making significantly more than they are or would make in the WNBA. It is 8 or 9 or 10 teams, and they're expanding as well. So they're threatening as far as scale, right? The WNBA does not like what's going on in Unrivaled, and the players like Gabby Williams have been really open and honest about this. But I think that more should be said about this. Like the WNBA is threatened by a league that wants to provide player stability and wants to help players financially in ways that make sense. Like Dearica Hamby is fighting for childcare. She's fighting for her child to have care while she's at work. Like that is something that is standard provided across the league, should be standard provided across the league. They just got chartered flights recently, and that was a whole thing because everyone said thank you, Caitlin Clark, right? Sure, like yes, I think that there's no doubt about the fact that her presence in the league helped to accelerate having chartered flights. But let's think about the fact that a lot of these women are high profile celebrities now. Like they're transitioning to high profile celebrities. That's not something that was the case 10-ish, 12-ish years ago. Like Lisa Leslie, she was, mind you, and this is Lisa Leslie. This is the first one of the first women to dunk a basketball in a professional game. Like this is the Lisa Leslie. Like she was a massive celebrity while she was big, and she could show up on like a black sitcom, and people would be like, "Oh my God, that's Lisa Leslie." But at the same time, it's not like it is now. Like she's not touching the kind of fame that an Angel Reese or a Caitlin Clark or even like Aaliyah Boston is touching. Like she's not touching that kind of fame that those players now have access to in 2025. She's not able to be seen in these multiple dimensional ways as like an influencer or whatever. Like, and the stud buds are like they're on Vogue, like they're on Slam magazine. They went viral recently because they were in talks with Barstool Sports, which is a massive sports company, despite how you may feel about them personally. Um, and so the WNBA is huge. I say that to say that Unrivaled gives you a better idea of where the game is going than the WNBA. And if they continue to have situations like that little selling incident with the Boston group, then they're just going to stymie themselves as a league, which would be a shame. Because then we have a lockout impending, right? I think that there's a lockout on the way, and it's hard because a lockout only works if the players' union operates as a union, but just like in the NBA and the NFL and the MLB and all these sports leagues with unions, sometimes people operate outside of the interests of the union, and then the lockout loses its integrity. So we'll see if the lockout actually happens. I hope the best for those women because that's what they deserve. All right. Shifting gears, I want to talk Kai's Kitchen really quickly. We haven't done Kai's Kitchen in a while. I don't even know what episode of Kai's Kitchen this would be, but this is a go-to sandwich. It's not too much for you to do, and this is like a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon thing. On the side, if you want to be a little healthier, you could do a little side salad. I really like the at Chick-fil-A, like when you get the side salad, they give you like these crushed red peppers, and then I'll put the avocado lime sauce on it. Avocado lime ranch dressing sauce. I love that. I don't know if that's the healthiest, because that avocado sauce is a lot of calories. But do that or some fries or something. Some low calorie chips, some popcorn. I'm honestly, some popcorn's not even crazy. But as far as the bread, I really like any French bread that's soft. Like I don't like to get like the super hard baguettes, but just like a French bread or just like a loaf hero style bread that's got some softness to it. That way you can determine, if how hard you would like the bread. Rotisserie chicken. I've mentioned on here before, you get your rotisserie chicken and you can get it from any grocery store for a decent price, but I like to separate it by light and dark meat and then shred it, or I like to cube it and use it for pasta or use it for chicken bowls, chicken wraps, chicken quesadillas. But take the shredded chicken and just or take the rotisserie chicken and like just pull it like by hand, just get in there, like wash your hands, get in there, and you can hand shred it. My girlfriend has this bacon that you just throw in the microwave, and for like 90 seconds, just let it cool, and then it's super crispy, and then you just kind of like cut it up. You can just do slices if you like, but that's way quicker. Pesto mayo, I do one side of the bread pesto, one side mayo, and then I like put them together and I just smush them and I swirl them around and that hence pesto mayo, a little bit of greens like a spring mix, and then some cheese and some red onion. That sandwich will take you no longer than 15 minutes to prepare. Like 15 minutes is being on the far side of the spectrum. It'll probably take you much less than 15 minutes, but that to me is that's what life is all about. You get you a sandwich like that, you can't be mad at nothing. All right. Let's get back to the sports. We're just going to end talking about Angel Reese's situation in Chicago and previewing the playoffs. And my pick to win is exactly who you think it is because y'all know who I'm a fan of. But I'm looking at the bracket and it favors them a little bit. So I'll talk about that. A massive article was released. I believe it was by Front Office Sports, basically pitting Angel Reese in this way where she's making a lot of inflammatory comments towards her team. And there's trouble in paradise with Chicago. I cannot get out of my mind the image of Reese fresh off of winning a national championship for LSU, right? A place that notoriously protects their athletes and makes them feel at home and is a hard place to leave going into this tiny gym to do her press conference on this little table with like a little sheet on it. Um, she couldn't hide it on her face. Like she was a little bit distraught by the situation. She makes a lot out of this, out of what is given to her, both on the court and not. And she is in contention for Rookie of the Year, all rookie team. Lots of double doubles, got her name out there. And then Teresa Witherspoon is let go. That's a big domino in their relationship of recent Chicago that is hard to overlook. Chicago, and this is I'm not the first person to say this, right? You can just look at the track record. They have lost all of their major pieces in the last 10 years because of gripes with the organization, because of things that were preventable. Whether it be a contract issue or whether it be a logistical issue, they have lost all of these players, like players that they've drafted, players that they've acquired. They have lost them. They're walking the street playing for someone else because of decisions made or not made by the Chicago Sky. And they're lucky that they were able to get that championship when they got it because I don't see them winning anything anytime soon running an organization like this. As far as the way that Reese's comments were characterized, I think that her comments are her comments, right? And that anything that comes from certain people is going to be perceived in the way that the general public would like it to be perceived, despite what is necessarily said. So Sophie Cunningham, for example, like her comments on Paige Beckers were really left field, talking about the way she's officiated and all this stuff. And to be honest, Paige Beckers has a really poor whistle in the WNBA. She initiates contact naturally. She gets hacked, she gets double teamed, she gets triple teamed, and Sophie Cunningham, who is this wannabe enforcer, is like, I can't even touch her. Well, the ref is trying to save you, to be honest, when they blow them whistles because they don't want to have you on House of Highlights all week, you know. But Cunningham is making those comments on her podcast. Beckers did not really take the bait. She kind of had a high road kind of comment, and then Cunningham doubled down after the game, and that's fine, in the court of public opinion. No one really seems to care. But with this Reese situation, like she made a really, in my opinion, really practical and pragmatic comment about Courtney Vandersloot being 36 coming off a torn ACL. She said the team can't rely on her as the base for XYZ because of her physical situation. Not implying that she's not a good player, not implying that once she comes back to full health, she cannot be relied on in certain ways, but that the team can't go into the offseason and say, we're fine at this position. We have this 36-year-old player coming off a torn ACL. That to me is not an insane statement, but the way it's being perceived and the way it's being characterized, I would not be surprised if she's out of Chicago. Now to where? I think Dallas. I think Dallas could be in the market. I think a lot of places could be in the market. Definitely not the Aces. Maybe Atlanta, probably not Seattle, probably not Phoenix. Low key, the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie put together a strong season. They made the playoffs. They have the coach of the year, in my opinion. They have the most improved player in the league in Veronica Burton. Uh, I could see the Valkyrie and then Washington as well. Washington failed to make the playoffs, which is why I think that it's a shame that they wasted a lot of good. Like they had a lot of good happen this season, with multiple All Stars, with a lot of nail biter games that were just great to watch. Speaking of the valuation, I'm sure their valuation went up a ton, even though they won a championship in 2019. I'm sure the valuation is just skyrocketed this year specifically because of the bombastic rookies and because again of the nail biting games. But yeah, I think Reese's time in Chicago is done, and I think that it is mostly on the organization and that again her comments are her comments and she's allowed to make them, but she also has not. It's not like she's gotten like when she was asked about them in a follow up. It's not like she just said, "Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that." Like she said, I own this." So it's a dicey situation that I think is going to come to a heed sooner rather than later. I don't think that they're gonna take this into the whole offseason because if Chicago wants to be serious, they gotta figure this out. So looking at the matchups, I'm gonna go through each matchup and explain to you why the Las Vegas Aces are gonna win the championship. So we have the Lynx and the Valkyrie. That's a pretty easy one for the Lynx. As long as they handle their business. The Valkyrie, well coached. They can't match up with the Lynx on their best day. Uh, on the bottom of that side of the bracket, we have the Mercury and the Liberty. That's a tough draw for the Liberty, and they got themselves in that situation by playing streaky up and down the season. The Mercury match up way too well with the Liberty. They beat them a couple times in the season. I like the Mercury in that game, and I think that Alyssa Thomas is a player who elevates herself in the playoffs in ways that few other players do. There's a lot of former champions in that matchup, so that's my favorite first round matchup, the Mercury and Liberty. That one could go either way, but I got the Mercury. That creates a matchup in the semis between the Lynx and the Mercury, which whether the Lynx have to play the Mercury or the Liberty, whoever they play in the semis, in my opinion, is going to be much more of an undertaking than whoever the Aces or Seattle, but I think the Aces would have to play in the semis in Atlanta or Indiana. So Lynx Mercury, I think that that's just going to be a big heavyweight match. Lots of punches being exchanged. But I have the Mercury coming out victorious in that. I think that they have great team chemistry. And as long as AT is going to get players in the right position to score. Satu has kind of wanted to be in this situation for some years, and so I think that and Khaled Copper is a player with championship experience, championship pedigree. I think the Mercury are going to go to the finals. Now the problem for them is that they're going to have the Aces waiting for them. So on the other side, you have the Aces in Seattle. That's going to be a lot for the Aces, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to take care of Seattle. Skylar Diggins, as long as you keep her in check, series is won. Atlanta, and there's no answer for Asia Wilson. Duh. The only X factor for Seattle is that rookie. If they unlock the rookie, it might be a different situation. But right now, I got the Aces. Atlanta and the Fever. The Fever should just be happy to be there. Kelsey Mitchell's greatness cannot be overstated. Aaliyah Boston's greatness cannot be overstated. But they're just happy to be there. Atlanta's gonna take them out. Then you have Atlanta versus Las Vegas. Las Vegas is going to wipe the floor with Atlanta, in my opinion. And Atlanta has some scrappy guards. They got some all WNBA all WNBA players, but Miss Jackie Young, second team all WNBA. She could have been first team in my opinion, and she's gonna show it in that series. So those are not two series that should give the Aces a lot of issues if they play Aces basketball, and that's why I think they're gonna enter the finals fresher than the Phoenix Mercury, and I think that they're gonna take them out. I'm excited to watch. I think that this is going to be a phenomenal playoffs. Great matchups all around. And, if you're not an Aces fan, get out of here. All right. That's the 26th episode in the AM with MC. Your boy is gone.